Good evening, everybody. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. We have two directors absent tonight, Ms. Grimm and Mr. Leach. And moving on to executive session announcements. There was an executive session held on Friday, March 11th. 2016 to discuss personnel evaluations. There will also be an executive session immediately following this meeting to discuss personnel. And before we get to public comment, I want to continue what I started at the last meeting in reference to student recognition. We have 3 students to talk about tonight that have been accepted into institutions of higher education. The first is Brady Custer, who is in the room, and the son of one of our directors on the board, Ashley Custer, and he was accepted to Robert Morris and offered a $44,000 scholarship. He was also accepted to Shippensburg, Bloomsburg, and Millersville. And Brady would like to thank Megan Delana, business teacher at PGHS and president of the PGEA, and Gary Christ, science teacher at PGHS. I hope I pronounced the name right. Avery Syker was accepted to the University of Pittsburgh and invited to apply for the Chancellor's Scholarship. Only 3% of Pitt's applicants are invited to apply for this full tuition scholarship. Avery would like to thank Mr. Yui, his chemistry teacher. Avery wrote, "He's an amazing teacher and he truly cares about all of his students. I always know I can go to him for help. He's helped me to become truly passionate about chemistry." And then finally, Noah Lear will be attending Temple University in the fall, majoring in sports management. Noah received the Temple Academic Scholarship, and he would like to recognize Coach Witt for his support in the classroom and on the field. So let's give these 3 students a big hand. So moving on to public comment. I don't have any cards, not that I care. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Okay, so report of the superintendent.
Thank you. We're going to start with Mr. Hanna, who's here to give you an update about the construction.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to what I, should I use the microphone? Yeah. Welcome everyone to what I believe is your last meeting in this room until June. So I'll give you a quick rundown of where we are in your project. So looking at the phasing plan, last time I was here, you were occupying the social studies rooms, which are being occupied now. The guidance office is finished except for a section of the floor here which ties into the work that's going to be done over the summer. Work has started in the purple area here, which is the Ox Gym and the team rooms. And starting actually April 1, we'll be moving into the auditorium and the DAO, which is here. As a matter of fact, now that Mr. Cardwell is ahead of schedule moving people out, some work may start in here this week. So to give you a little pictorial of what we have, the guidance office is finished, and I mean, I showed you some of these photos before, but some of them are occupied now. Some of your staff's in there. I guess Ms. Feola's in there. Mr. Nestor was just moved in there, so that's been occupied. Here's the entrance all cleaned up, nice. This is some of the Ox Gym demo. This is the 400 corridor, and what's demoed there is what's going to be called the engineering porch. That's going to have a railing around it where the openings taken out. Here's the Ox Gym, your old gym, which is going to become the auxiliary gym. In the background will be the auxiliary gym. In the foreground here, this is going to be divided and become the engineering lab and your CAD lab. Locker room work has begun. You're going to get some new showers, new fixtures, some new lights, of course, new HVAC and ventilation in there. Here's some other work being done in the locker rooms. Now, one of the things that Mr. Cardwell come up with to help with some of the air exchange during the renovation here, we built a platform up there, and there's 4 negative air machines in there, which are keeping that in a negative air. So we are really moving air out of there so it doesn't bother your program. And it's been working very well. There was quite a bit of activity being done in there today, and there was no negative effects at all. So that's been working very well, and it was Mr. Cardwell's idea. It works really well. On the site work, this is your turf field. Work's begun on that, as I showed you. The storm lines are in. The infiltration basins are in. The subgrade, the base that the turf field's going to go on is ready for a proof roll. I don't think we're going to have any soil issues here. So it's looking at the beginning of April. There's going to be a flurry of activity in there, getting ready to put the turf down. They're projecting they may be able to give us that turf field by August 1. If everything goes well, they'll be able to have that for your summer, your fall sports. The other thing that's happening is in the softball field, we're doing some underground drains in there to help with the water problem, and some of the burden that's been taken off the turf field has been moved over here, and this is going to get a new infield mix and some backstops and benches. So looking at that, this is the work that's been done in the turf field. This is some of the new storm drainage that's been put across the turf field to take up a lot of water that comes there. You can see here, this is the subgrade of the turf field being prepared, and we're doing the inspections. This is the inspector there checking it, making sure that it's stable. This is the drainage piping that's going in around the softball field. You can see a lot of it's done. There's still more to do here. It's moving along very well. And that's pretty much it. Anybody got any questions?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah, I have 2.
Go ahead.
The first one was, I was alerted today that there's a very annoying squeaking sound in the, I think it's room 111.
Yeah, there's a HVAC unit. They're checking it, trying to find out. It might just be a fan or a belt.
That's what I thought it sounded like, a fan.
Yeah.
Because it was likened to like a hamster on a wheel
That's
when it
correct.
squeaks.
That's correct. And we're waiting until there's nobody in that classroom that they can get up there and tear it apart and take a look at it. So that's on the agenda to be done during the spring break. Yes.
Okay, good, because I've heard that's very annoying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And 2, and this is just, I just happened to think of this the other day. When I was pulling into the school, it was one of the damp mornings. You know, it was, I don't know if it had rained the night before, I don't remember. But is there any, like, was there ever any kind of agreement for the tractors and the trucks to clean their tires off before moving around?
I know which morning you're talking about.
Yeah, because it was really muddy.
It was very much, and there were some procedures they should have had in place, they didn't have in place, and I notified them of that, but yes, there is. They didn't have a rock entrance done, but as soon as I came in, I noticed that, and I made them aware of it, and they took immediate action.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes, there is, or yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
You know what I'm going to ask? Are we on track
We're doing very well,
to be
yes.
done by the deadline to start school on time?
I don't anticipate problems right now. I mean, we're really looking at that. I do not anticipate any problems.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
We're going to move on to our next discussion item, which is our special education plan update. Ms. Kate Pasito's here to just give you a brief summary of what this is. And essentially, it's a piece of our comprehensive plan, and the state requires us to submit this piece ahead of when we do our comprehensive plan. And Kate was on the committee with Dr. Roberts, so she'll be able to explain it to us.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for having me. You have in your packet for review a draft proposal of our special education plan. There are many components to this. I'll just give you a brief overview. Ms. Feola mentioned the committee that we had that was comprised of parents, teachers, and administrators. They're listed on the inside of the cover, page 2. Many thanks to everyone that participated. Their input was really valuable and appreciated. The plan talks about the overview, how we identify students in the district as needing special education services, the enrollment of students in our programs, numbers, as well as disability categories. And then the plan further discusses what supports and services are available to those students, both in our district and in our out-of-district programs, and how we oversee those programs and students receiving services off campus. Additionally, you'll see several pages of grids. This is where we provide information to the state about our caseload numbers. There are requirements that we need to stay within ratio, and the teacher FTEs and staff full-time equivalencies are listed for the state and for your review as well. Those are by building. Several pages of that information. And then beyond that, we go into a strengths and needs summary, and this is where our committee was especially helpful in providing input. And the strengths and needs summary further informed our proposed professional development plan. So there are targeted areas that you'll see listed here that the state requires us to provide professional development every 3-year cycle. And you'll see that starting on page 39. Autistic support is one of those categories. Behavior support, professional development for our paraprofessionals, which perform many essential duties for our students and staff. Reading professional development, and finally transition. And transition is service for students as they approach graduation, making sure that they're ready for post-secondary education, employment, or independent living. So those are the targeted areas, and it lists in there how we'll partner with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, Patton, as well as other vendors and providers and internal resources to provide professional development. So that's the long plan in a nutshell.
And the process, Kate, by the state's guidelines is once we've completed it, that we've put it up for a 28-day review,
Yes.
Followed by board approval, followed by submission, and that has to be in by April.
May 1st.
May 1st.
You mean a public review or a state review?
Public review. We'll put it up. We'll post it up on our website tomorrow in our special ed.
May I just compliment you on presenting a 49-page document as quickly as you just did.
Thank you.
I don't know if my question actually is covered in this, and I did bring this up in the previous board meeting. It's on my radar because of a couple of complaints I've received from parents, and I just wanted to make you aware that there are some complaints at in the K2s related to ED and learning support students being in classrooms, special classrooms, I guess, together, and perhaps some disruption that's been occurring as a result of that. And I have no specific information to give you. I brought it up with Shellie. She pointed out that we can't just do everything we want in special education because we have to provide free and appropriate education, et cetera, in the least restricted environment. But nonetheless, I just wanted to make you aware that I've heard some rumblings, for lack of a better way to phrase it, about that.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing
Yeah.
that to my attention. We definitely do use our behavior analyst as well to help in those situations, but we are looking to address those concerns.
Okay.
A few questions, sorry. On page 3, students identified with a specific learning disability has decreased by approximately 10%. Is it safe to say that that is due to our excellent special ed teaching staff, that we're giving the students the techniques that they need, that they're able to then test out of?
I think that that's
Move forward.
definitely one factor. This is something, the identification of eligible students is something that I definitely am interested in looking into further. But I think that that's one of the factors. Students are receiving strategic and specially designed instruction and are therefore eligible for exit from special ed sometimes. There are probably several variables that factor into this equation that would just be hunches at this point.
Well, kudos to our excellent special ed staff and the part that they're playing in that percentage. Page 4, top of page 4, it talks about the percentage of students served in other settings outside the district is 2% higher than the state average. That's an ongoing concern of mine that I'll bring up again since we're looking at this in the report. What are we doing, or what are we going to be doing moving forward to address this issue?
Well, something that I have been working on all year is establishing relationships with our out-of-district placements. So whenever I can, I visit the placements, I get to know the students and the families, participate in the IEP meetings on campus to have greater oversight of those programs, to find out is the student ready and able to return to the district, and if so, how can we facilitate that in a seamless way? Some students are not ready, but I think that increasing that oversight will really be helpful, and that's something that I intend to keep a close eye on.
How about the issue of when we have a student that we initiate the process and send them out, what steps can we take to be proactive versus reactive and work with that student within the district in a safe environment that's assuring free education, appropriate education for that student and the other students around them?
Well, I can assure you that students that are referred for out-of-district placements, the IEP team prior to that is exhausting resources here in the district. It's not a quick move. That's not something that legally we're able to do or ethically that's appropriate for the student. So we have many IEP meetings. We're involving related service providers. We're involving the families. We're involving their community partners that support them in the home and the school. Any supports and services that we can provide here, and of course moving from a general ed setting to a more supported environment here before referring out, we want to make sure that we've exhausted the resources for the student, and that's a last resort.
And that's an issue I probably want to discuss further at appropriate time and seeing what more we can do as a district, and we need to look at different resources and that sort of thing. But a concern of mine, page 6, top of page 6, I'm a little confused. Last sentence of that first paragraph. It says we were actively pursuing the development of RTI model. This has been around since early 2004 or 5, I'm not sure. Why are we just pursuing the development at this time? And I don't know that you're the best one to, I think you're kind of new to the district, so sorry to put you on the spot, but.
That's okay, and we may have others that could comment, but I can certainly tell you what I know, that RTI has been around for quite some time, and we were doing a reboot this year and perhaps even last year as well, just to revisit any program that's been implemented for a long time. Certainly it's a good idea to revisit, make sure that it's being implemented as efficiently and appropriately as possible. So the Pupil Services Department, along with curriculum and principals, have been taking a careful look at the schedule in each building, how is time being maximized to provide tiered instruction for students. So I wouldn't say that it's an initial implementation, but it's a revisit.
Is the wording probably could be, maybe we can clear that up on here, because as you're correct, that we've had RTII in place for a while. Now, they have changed segued into a new term, MTSS, and we looked at that and revisited what that means, and we're looking at definitely the behavioral side as well. And for instance, the high school hasn't had a SWIFS program, but they're working this year on planning for implementation of that next year, which is part of the MTSS system on the behavior side. That's just one thing different.
I would encourage the changing the wording of that. I think that could raise a red flag, possibly with the state. And second, I hate to have to bring this issue up at a board level, and this is not directed to you specifically. I don't know who it's directed to, but it's certainly not just in this report. But again, we are seeing things coming across our desks, so to speak, ready to go to the state in this case, ready to be published, already out, published in some cases, that have an incredible amount of grammar errors. And this needs to stop. For a public school, I mean, how dare we sit in a classroom and grade students for grammar errors and spelling errors when we're producing, and I apologize to you, this is not just this document, it is one of many, and we're producing documents that have numerous errors in themselves. I think we need to be doing something to be doing a better job at proofreading documents before they go out to the public, before they go to the board, certainly before they go to the state.
Kate, is it really that surprising, given our demographic makeup, that we're 2% above the average in terms of outplacements?
I don't think it's surprising, but I think there's always work that can be done. But I'm not
Well,
surprised, no.
Well, is there a correlation between the level of economic disadvantage and the number of students that might be outplaced? Is there some correlation there, or am I just making it up in my head?
Well, I haven't researched that within our district specifically, but there is research nationally and certainly worldwide that would support that there is a correlation there. Yes.
Well, then I would just maintain that given that over 35% of our students are economically disadvantaged, you might actually conclude that only being 2% above the state average is actually a very good number rather than a bad one. So, I mean, I don't know the answer, and I'm not asking you, I'm just pointing out that it might not be as bad as it appears. So, thanks.
I was going to save this for the end of the meeting, but since you're here and you're discussing this, I'm not going to give any specifics. I have a new neighbor who just moved in next to me, and she was talking to me today, and she was almost in tears. She is so happy. Her child has special needs. They came from another state down south, and she couldn't say enough what's being done with her child. So we always have both sides, and I know it's nice to hear and she wouldn't even, I mean, I wanted to come in and eat before I came to the meeting, but I couldn't leave her standing there, and she just couldn't go on enough, and I just wanted to thank you, because hearing that and knowing her child it made me feel good. So it's positive.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think sometimes the issues that raise to your awareness, unfortunately, are on the other side
Correct.
of the coin.
And that's just
there are
nature.
so many good things that are happening.
Yep.
So
So
thank
keep
you.
up that good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. We appreciate that. Moving on to the third item was the district calendar for 15-16. This is our current year calendar. I'm bringing it back to your attention because if you remember correctly that we used 2 snow emergency days this school year, and I wanted to remind you that there's 1 extra day built into the calendar, and typically when we've had snow days, on numerous occasions, boards have pardoned the 181st day, and we had 180 student days. And with that, we would only need to make up 1 day. So this recommendation that's in front of you here is recommending that we push the end of the school year by 1 day, which would be the 16th of June. It's currently slated for the 15th of June. And then the last 3 days would be the half days. We just moved them down. And then we also had to make a notation on here about the days that we did not have the high school students in session at the beginning of the year because of the construction project. Those just need to be quantified as Act 80 days. So the dotted lines that are on 4 dates on this calendar are, if we call those Act 80 days, then the high school students don't have to make up those days. We've already had this discussion, and it was already priorly board approved. I'm just putting it on here because we have to send a document to the state that indicates such. So that is on there as well. So we need a motion to amend the calendar if you're so inclined to amend the calendar for the snow days at this time, unless you want to wait longer. That's one piece. The second piece is that you need to eventually decide what you'd like for graduation. And the way the calendar falls this year, I spoke with the Dr. Ziegler and the senior class advisor, who's Mr. Schuster, and they indicated that we have the senior class trip May 31st through June 4th. And then when the students come back from that trip, we like to hold school for 2 days to allow for remediation and, just practice for the final exams, just to make sure they're back in school and they're comfortable, ready to take their exams. So that being said, the regular class schedule would run on June 6th, it's a Monday, and June 7th. And then finals would be held June 8th, June 9th, and then we have a conflict day. We always have a third conflict day for makeups and any other conflict that might happen for a senior who is on the verge and hopefully graduating, and we're trying to clear those last minute things up. That would put rehearsal days, which we typically have 2, the following Monday and Tuesday, so that's June 13th and 14th. And then that would put graduation on June 15th. That's a Wednesday. In years past, we've held graduation on different days, Thursdays, Fridays, Wednesdays, throughout history. I know last year, I believe we tried to put it on a Friday, but we were closer to the end of the week to be able to do that. I spoke with Mr. Schuster, and he didn't think that that would be a good idea this year because our students end on the 16th. We've never held graduation after the student body is left. We also want our staff involved, and they're here when the students are here, but they're on summer break once the year's over. So the recommendation is to hold graduation on June 15th, which is a Wednesday evening. We need a motion for the calendar revision. We also need a motion for graduation when you're ready.
The only question I have about that schedule that you laid out is 2 days coming back from the senior trip enough time for students to get back into final exam mode? I see one head nodding back in the audience. I don't know. I mean, my son's not in the high school yet, so I think that in his case, but he's a middle schooler, that wouldn't be enough time, but maybe he's not mature enough yet. So.
Well, I asked that to Mr. Schuster, and I just want you to know, he said if you extend the student day, you're going to have a mutiny on your hands with the seniors. So, so I don't know.
Okay.
I think they think it's enough time, both the students and the teachers. But
Anybody else have any questions or comments? So we need 2 motions then. I'll make the first, I'll make them both. The first motion is a motion to approve the calendar as accepted, or as presented. Second. Have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Then I'll make a motion. Actually 7-0. Thank you. 7-0. And then I'll make a motion to set the graduation date on Wednesday, June 15th. Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Rabinowitz. And moving on to our next item, which was high school class rank, the curriculum, technology, and student affairs committee has been reviewing this whole issue, and essentially, after a lot of discussion at the last meeting, I believe it's the committee's intent to accept the recommendation. we took all of their recommendations and articulated in writing so that they could review it. I sent it back out to the committee last week and said that I would bring it forth for discussion tonight. So essentially what we're asking is for you to take a look at a policy change. And it's essentially one line being added to the policy and strike through in just one line of the current class rank policy. And what that does is essentially say that we're going to rank students who are in the top 1/4 of the class for purposes of really applying for college and looking for scholarships. Mr. Leach felt that it was in our best interest to have the rank on the transcript for those students who might like to have it on there for class rank. We also discussed that we didn't feel it was appropriate to have the rank on there for students below the top 25%, because all it does is just identify a student in rank order, and we didn't feel that it was necessary to rank students below that, and we didn't want to point out that they weren't in the top 25%. We didn't want to put that out publicly. So what this policy basically does is say that we're only going to list it for the top 1/4 of the class. Now, any student who would want their rank can certainly request that and be given their rank. We just weren't going to put that as a public notation on their transcript. Additionally, in this policy, we crossed out that their rank in class shall be entered on their record, because it's just going to be entered on their transcript at the top 1/4 of the class, which is what we do now. What we were doing is putting it on the transcript. Additionally, we wrote administrative regulations that just articulate for those users on the back end that are implementing your policy to make sure that it's implemented the way in which the board intended. So there's some detail in there that people on the back, like the guidance counselors, the technology personnel that work to check all the transcripts and the transfer of students, and just to articulate in writing what our practice is, and we talk through what we'd like that to be moving forward. We think that this is a really clear way of making sure that they understand it, so 10 years from now, there's not a question, which I think is what happened in this case. Well, what did we used to do? Well, we have this scenario now. Well, we didn't have that scenario then. This wasn't deduced to writing. So we worked, Dr. Shirk and Mr. Wagman and myself, with the guidance counselors and put this to writing, which is the conversation that we had with the Curriculum, Technology, and Staff Development Committee. And so now it's in writing for them. So essentially, what the board would need to do would be to at some point approve the board policy, and that's what I'm simply bringing that report to you. And if this board is inclined to move forward, I don't know how you want to handle the policy review. Put it up for 30 days and wait, or how you'd like that handled. But
Well, I think this might be another case where we might need to do a little expedition, right? Because we need to. What's that?
Is this, Ms. Feola, is this for next year, this policy?
For the most part, yeah. I think.
Yes.
So it can wait through our normal process, or will that? Or do you need us to approve it sooner? That's, I guess, my question.
I think you need to approve it sooner, because we were waiting for guidance on the 15-16 and the 16-17 conversion and how we were going to calculate it. I guess you don't, because the policy doesn't speak to that, but my AR does, so I'm just going to follow through with the AR as long as you're comfortable with it. So I guess it doesn't really matter.
I had a question about the AR, and that was why we're delaying the honor graduates until 2018. Can you speak to that, or can Bill?
Well, right, yes, because the way we're calculating the GPA, we're not calculating to the 4.33 and the 4.0 until the last year. I suppose we could do it with the class of 2018, but we felt that that's what we do have, because that's the first year we're using the 4.33. We're converting backward. The committee decided they wanted to convert backward to a 100-point scale for this year and for next year, and then we're going to convert to the 4-point scale in 2018. So we can't really do that until we get to that year, because we're converting to the 4-point scale. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you look at the AR, Distinguished Honors says a 4.33 or higher. Well, we're not converting to that scale until 2018. Right now, we're converting back to the 100-point scale. And this is another reason I'd like to get this out, because I think that communication needs to happen to our students, and then we need to communicate to our parents. So if you're so inclined to move forward with this, you know, the principal will know what they need to put in a letter to parents, and then what we need to be communicating with students as we have meetings and so on, so that they understand what we're doing. Because the students, to this point, except for the ones that attend the meetings, don't really know how we're converting or calculating their GPA, or how we will be, until this gets out and published.
The question I have is, do we not have distinguished honors right now?
No, we do not.
We don't at all?
No, we don't. We do not. We have class rank, so we do a salutatorian and a valedictorian, and your committee decided that you'd like to keep that, so we
Yes,
still
no.
have that there.
But we've never
And-
had distinguished honors up in,
No, not
in the middle school?
not as part of the graduation process. This is something that our guidance counselors in our committee, part of our committee with administration, we recommended looking at going away from salutatorian and valedictorian, because you're really only honoring those top 2 students. We were trying to broaden the honor that we could bring to our students and go more toward a collegiate process, where you have categories of students, distinguished honors, like cum laude, summa cum laude, but instead we had distinguished honors, high honors, and academic honors. But the committee didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep salutatorian and valedictorian, but they still thought it was a good idea to have these other honors. So what we're saying is we have to plan this out, but it would be a way for us to honor additional students at graduation, at the ceremony. We're not sure if we want to do lanyards or, you know, some sort of different thing on their robes. That was something the guidance counselors talked with us about, and we would have to have further conversation with them and plan and put that together for the future. But that was something that they brought forth as an idea, and I thought it was a really good idea.
okay, I think my confusion was just that my oldest 2 are in the middle school, and they have distinguished honors there, and
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
for
what I
honor
was,
roll.
I
It's
guess
not
I
the
always
same
thought
thing.
that the high school had it as well. I was not aware of that. Okay.
Well, they do, it's just they don't do it as part of the graduation process as an overall thing, as opposed to the per quarter method that we use in both schools. So it's just you know, the sort of similar words, but different meaning, right?
Right.
Okay. So you need us, any other questions or comments about this?
Question about this. So the committee made up of board members is recommending this policy. I want to make sure and hear from the educators at all levels that have the expertise in this area. Is this policy educationally sound? Is it, or is it unique in comparison to other public schools? Is it something that will work for the higher education? There might have been disagreements, and that's okay, but is this academically acceptable?
Yes, it's academically acceptable.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So I guess my question to you is could we plan to approve this policy at the next board meeting, and would that be enough time to accomplish your goals? I would at least like this to be posted and have the opportunity for public comment, comment from the student body as well, if they so choose. I think it's a good compromise between what was originally recommended and what on the current system. So, but I'd be hesitant to just approve it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that okay? Everybody else okay with that? Great.
Okay, and moving on, I just wanted to bring to your attention something with regard to the Keystone exams in Senate Bill 880, and I did put an FAQ in your packet, just so you understood what Senate Bill 880 is. And essentially what Senate Bill 880 articulates is that there's a moratorium on the Keystone exams as a graduation requirement for students prior to 2019. But that being said, there's a couple of things that we do have to do. We were kind of dragging our feet in terms of posting the scores for the exams, the proficiency of biology, algebra and literature at this point, because those are the three that we have to test in on the student's transcript. But Chapter 4 requires that, so we're going to have to put it on the student's transcript effective immediately. This has been going back and forth through the legislature for a while, and we were hoping 880 was going to stipulate that it didn't have to be on there, but it does have to be on there, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention when you see it on there. That's why it's on there, because it's really required by the law under Chapter 4. So that will be on there. So a student will only have the top score, so once they're proficient, it'll just say P for proficient. Now, if a student fails the Keystone exam, according to 880, we can't require intervention, but we must offer intervention. So we will be offering intervention. What I've charged Mr. Voorhees and Dr. Ziegler and Dr. Ramage to do is sit back down, because we haven't had a Keystone intervention plan in place that's on our website currently that kind of says what happens if a student doesn't pass the Keystone. We're going to revisit that while this moratorium is in place, and they're going to come back to me with what they believe should be the plan in place in terms of offering the interventions and how we're going to do that, because we do want to give students opportunities for passing so that we can change what's on their transcript if they aren't proficient the first time. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. The other thing that I think a lot of boards are discussing right now is that they don't want to lower their standards. I had a meeting with all the superintendents from the county, so we had this conversation, so I'm just bringing to your attention what the conversation was among the superintendents with their boards. But they're starting to talk about this whole issue and what it means for to graduate from their high school, because there's language in Chapter 4 that has not changed, and that is on your FAQ. Under number 2, it talks about the following modified Chapter 4 requirements shall apply. This is still in Chapter 4. Course completion and grade, so it's everything on your policy that says that the student has to complete. But the second bullet, demonstration of proficiency as determined by the school district, charter school, or AVTS if applicable, blah, 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 blah. But that's the term, demonstration of proficiency as determined by the school district. So I guess what I'm saying is that allows you leeway to have conversation about what that means for a student in Pottsgrove High School. And if we have a student that's not really, that's not meeting proficiency as we deem necessary, then we can provide interventions through that avenue. I think what some of the superintendents were worried about is that we would just offer the intervention now, and we've got students that don't understand the basic concept of algebra because they can't pass the Keystone, but then we weren't going to have any way to ensure that we were helping them meet their goals. So this language is something that I asked Dr. Ziegler and Mr. Voorhees, Dr. Ramage to kind of take a look at, and whether or not we should be incorporating some opportunities that are a little bit more than just, hey, we have an intervention opportunity on such and such a period, would you like to attend? Because I think what I'm saying is this gives teeth in having students participate in those things, because we think that we want them to be successful later on, and they don't have the requisite skills to move on to the next course and be successful there, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to bring those 2 points to your attention, not that we have to do anything about them right now. It's just 2 things that we're talking about with our administrative team, and as I said, we'll bring back what we come up with for you to take a look at a later time.
I just want to be clear on 2 points that you raised and make sure I understood them. I read the FAQ a couple of times, and actually, I'm not going to base it on what you just said. I'm going to base it on my read. So my read is that the state still requires all students to take the exams.
Yes.
And so they cannot opt out.
Only for religious purposes?
But the state no longer requires them to pass the exam.
Correct.
In order to graduate.
Right.
Up through at least right now 2018, 2019.
Correct.
So whereas we had previously established that students would need to pass the exam even before the state requirement, we no longer will be doing that. Is that, or is that still an open
We
question?
no longer, I know Bill is checking this with legal counsel at the IU, but I don't believe we can require them.
That's what
But
my question was.
understand that our SPP score is likely to drop.
Well,
I mean,
as is
that's-
everybody else's, because they can't require it either. So, understood. But I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly, because that is an issue of concern in the community, so.
I think one of the things we're still trying to figure out is, does the project-based assessment have to be the one that the state says it has to be, or can we have our own project-based assessment or some other assessment to deem proficiency? And if we can, that would be our recommendation, because the one that the state designed is almost impossible, and it's difficult for students and it frustrates them more. But if we can have our own process to allow someone to receive intervention and then be tested in some way or another, whether it's just a skills check or a project-based assessment or some other means, and then deem them proficient, then we would like to consider that. See what I'm saying? Because this Chapter 4 gives us teeth in that, because it says that the local district can decide that. And that's what we're still working on.
Understood. And
We
then,
just got this.
yes, and then since we can no longer require that students go through remediation, it's reasonable to presume that a fair percentage of them won't go through remediation, or are we not sure what will
No,
happen?
it's fair to assume that they won't, unless we take the avenue that we're expecting some sort of passage of a local process.
So,
You know,
so you're suggesting that's what I was unclear about. So you're suggesting that we could theoretically require a project-based assessment based on this read of Chapter 4?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And that would ensure that, you know, Johnny's getting the right remediation that we feel that they need to get the requisite skills and bring them up so that they're successful. Because really, if we don't make sure they have the requisite skills, they go on to the next course in their skill deficit. And then what happens? Then we set them up for failure. So if we're using the Keystone as, here are the skills for algebra that they need to be successful, but they don't have them, and we're sending them on to Algebra 2 without, and we're offering, okay, come for intervention if you want to. What if they don't? Then we're setting them up for Algebra 2 for failure. What we're saying is we'd like to consider whether or not we have we mandate a process that a student does get some sort of assistance and intervention so that they have the requisite skills, so that when they move on to the next course, they're not put at a disadvantage. Because we're trying to help students, we're not trying to hinder them.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but we're going to run this through a legal test, right?
Yeah,
Because it
that's
seems,
what the other
it
districts
seems
are
like
talking
it
about.
seems like one part of the law is saying you can't do that.
Saying you can't make them the Keystone. Doesn't say that the local has its own, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
I get it.
Chapter 4 is articulating that the local can have their own, it can't be the Keystone, it can be something else, but, you know,
I get
we're
it.
in a catch-22.
I'm not sure how I feel about it, but
Well, I'm not
but I get it. So
I just want you to consider a kid
yeah.
who doesn't have the requisite skills in algebra, but we're pushing them on. Now, could that maybe be remediated in Algebra 2 course? Maybe. And that's what we're just starting to have these conversations about, because we just got this document on 880, so we're trying to decide what our plan is, and then we'll bring that back.
Anybody else?
Yes. Here's my dilemma. Student passes our required course here at Pottsgrove for the algebra, takes the Keystone exams and doesn't get proficient. What's our case for saying you're not proficient, but he or she did pass our required curriculum for that school year, and we send them to the next, Algebra 2 or whatever, we send them to the next school year or whatever, we're not, lack of a better word, failing in we're not just pushing them to the next bracket, the Algebra 2. They've passed, they've demonstrated as far as our curriculum goes, but they haven't passed the Keystone exam. you know, you're going to have a parent looking at you saying, or the student himself saying, well, I just got a B or a C or whatever in algebra, and the state's telling me I'm not proficient. How can you ask me to go to remediation? I'm just asking. That's the question that's going
We
to come
have
up.
that issue now, John,
Yeah.
and that's
Oh,
why
I had it with my daughter,
we're
so I know.
working on our, our core curriculum.
Right.
And also our opportunities for students at getting the help in, we added an extra 0.5 to the algebra.
I just throwing something else into the mix, that's all.
No,
Just
but I
question
hear what you're
had.
saying.
Okay.
It's a valid point. And
Thank you.
it's something that we need to continue to work on.
Mr. Zlomek?
Thank you. Counselor, let me ask. If we have a student who is not deemed proficient, and yet we offer our own set of standards that they go through remediation and then they maybe do a project-based assessment, and we say, okay, now you're good to go. Does that pose any future liability to the school district? We don't have to worry about
Educational
getting sued.
malpractice cases have got no traction, have no success in our system of jurisprudence at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple things. Okay, it was brought up that the Keystone scores would be on the transcripts. I just want to let everybody know, colleges don't care. They absolutely don't care, especially if they're an out-of-state. They don't even understand the Keystone test and the scores. So that shouldn't be a concern. I mean, I've had multiple college admissions counselors tell us, we don't care. It makes no difference to us whatsoever. Second one is there's a part on here about how students cannot lose an elective to be remediated. But yet in 9th grade, our kids are losing an elective. They're losing a half credit of elective to be remediated in Keystones. They are. It's the kids who weren't
We don't see
proficient-
it that way. We see it that as an addition to the core expectation
But that's
for
not
algebra.
how it was presented. It was presented as if kids did not, if they weren't in advanced algebra, or if they had not tested proficient in algebra, they were put in 1.5 credits of algebra instead of 1. So that's losing an elective.
That I don't think it's interpreted, it would be interpreted this way here. They're talking about, you failed the Keystone, now I'm going to put you in a remediation course. This is an extension of our core curriculum because we had students that did not have the requisite skills to be in the algebra, and we're giving them more time for learning. More time for learning is actually a research-based practice in helping students acquire the right skills that they need to move forward. So in our opinion, that's part of the core curriculum, and we made that adjustment a couple of years ago, or last year, I forget which, to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that they have enough time in algebra to get all of the skills that are taught in that course.
Okay, but that 0.5 is spent using Carnegie. It was, my daughter was the first class to have that 0.5. And it's Carnegie-based, and it was, I was specifically told, it is for Keystone remediation. So unless that has changed somehow in the last year, because she's only in 10th grade now, I see that as saying, you know what, that's got to go. Put the 9th graders back with 1.5 credits of electives instead of just 1. Electives, I understand the importance of math and mastering algebra, but it's also very important that we give our students a chance to explore other avenues and to take a little break. And if they don't get that chance, and instead you're taking the kids who probably aren't thrilled with math anyway, and you're doubling them up on it 3 days out of every 6, and you're putting them in front of a computer on a Carnegie site that as of yet has been not proven to help in any way. And actually, studies show that it doesn't, that it's actually a flat line. And these kids are missing out on maybe taking a foods or an art or a music class. And I think that's a shame.
Ashley, I have a couple of thoughts in relation to your comments. While it may have been presented to you as a remediation, I think that was ill-spoken. It clearly isn't, because they haven't failed anything yet, and remediation requires you to fail something. So it is extra time. And my first thought is that we are undergoing a math program quality review, and I certainly hope that what we're doing with that half credit is under review for some of the reasons that you put forth. However, having also had a student go through the algebra program in 1 year, I can tell you that it is a challenge to cover all of the eligible content that the state tests the students on in one period per day. It is more than a challenge. It is effectively impossible. And you know, my son was in the advanced class, and they tried to rush it through, and still there was content that wasn't covered. So I'm not sure that that abandoning the half credit, despite the cost of in terms of electives, is necessarily the wrong thing to do, or the right is. I don't think we should necessarily lose the half credit. I think that more information is needed, but I share your concern about it, and if it's not proving if it's not showing improvement, then the cost is too high. So it's only been a year, so I don't think there's enough data in. And as I said, we're going through this program quality review, so I hate to say let's defer the discussion, but I think we need to defer it for now, unless anybody else has anything else they want to add.
Just one more thing. Shellie, you're talking about how we push the kids. You know, they might not be ready yet because they haven't scored proficient on Keystone. But as long as they pass algebra, they're going to geometry anyway. So why use this test to say you're not ready? Because as long as they get a D or higher, they're going up to the next level anyway. So it sort of seems like it doesn't make any sense, because if they don't get proficient on the Keystone, which for the next 2 years isn't even a graduation requirement, they're not going to be held back. They're not going to have to redo algebra.
I mean, I guess you have to consider what's going to happen at the end of the 2 years, or in 6 months when they come back with their study and say that we're going to have to employ something else that we don't have. I mean, and then we've done a disservice to these students who didn't pass it, and then we've done nothing to help them. Even if they do go on to geometry, they obviously are missing some skills if they can't pass that exam. That's all we're saying. Shouldn't we be doing something to do right by them to make sure that they have those skills met? Now, certainly, should we be doing it in the core curriculum? That's certainly our first thought. And, you know, what's going on in the core curriculum that we're not able to meet proficiency are we in the middle of this transition in Common Core where, as Rick pointed out, there was a lot more content that had to be taught and we weren't able to get through it. Our teachers are trying to adjust to that. They're figuring out their pacing in their course, or is it something more? And that's kind of what we've been studying and doing. And we do have those math coaches that are coming in working with our teachers to make sure we're implementing with fidelity. So you weren't thrilled with the Carnegie program, and unfortunately your daughter had it the first year, but we are working on making sure that it's being implemented with fidelity and that our teachers are receiving feedback on how they're doing with the implementation, monitoring, and giving feedback to students so that we can make sure that we're using the resource right first before we just say it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, obviously, there's more to Keystones than just algebra. There's biology and literature. If it's not going to be a graduation requirement, would it be possible to bring back honors earth and space in ninth grade? Because kids have lost out. The ninth graders have lost out on the opportunity to take honors earth and space. Instead, now their only choice is to take honors bio or academic earth and space. There's a big deficiency there. And the kids aren't necessarily ready for honors bio in ninth grade. That's a hard class. Ask my son. He took it in 10th grade. He waited. He took honors earth and space, right? No? Academic? Okay. I can't remember. But the kids, when the ninth graders that are in honors bio are having a tough time because they don't have the foundation. And so when they don't have the capability of taking honors earth and space in ninth grade, while they're smart enough to do it, it's not offered. And it's a shame. And I know part of the reason is because of Keystones, but that's something we should look into to bringing back, because to throw a ninth grader into a biology class that they're not ready for because they don't have the foundation, just so that they can pass a test that for the next 2 years isn't even a requirement, seems to be doing a disservice to the students.
We can certainly look at that in our curriculum renewal. I mean, I off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure why the honors earth and space was taken away, other than well, partially because of the Keystone, and students were ready for biology, or we thought they were, and they were getting that taken care of in ninth grade and working on the literature in 10th grade and so on. But also it could be because we went to one teacher teaching earth and space so that we could offer other electives in the biology. So when we had a retirement in the high school that had an earth and space cert, we elected not to hire that certification again because it was limiting. That's all they can do. And instead we hired a biology cert, because the biology cert, there's a myriad of different courses that they can teach, and we were able to offer some of those newer things that you're seeing in the course book because of that. And you have to make a sacrifice somewhere, so that could very well have been where that happened. But we could take a look at it.
Okay, let's move on.
The next thing under discussion I wanted to bring to your attention, I wanted to talk with you about a temporary plan for pupil services. And as you know, Dr. Roberts resigned suddenly and kind of left us in a situation where we weren't quite sure what our next move is. And as we're figuring out what our next move is, we obviously have to have some support here in pupil services. And we have over 600 IEP students, we have gifted students, we have all the other pupil services functions, counseling, nursing, so on and so forth. And we have one lone soldier over there, Mrs. Pasito, trying to hold down the fort. And so, I put my head together with Dr. Shirk, and we feel that just in the short term, the best thing that we can do is to continue what we're doing with gifted education and Dr. Cohn, and I'm requesting that we add an additional day to her, approximately 2 days a week to be approximately 3 days a week, and let that contract go through July only if we need it, so that we can focus on all aspects of the gifted program, because the other area that Dr. Roberts was working on is our identification process. That's a key area that needed some focus, which was on her docket for this year based on the program quality review. That was where she was starting. So that work still needs to be completed. As you know, I asked you to approve, and you did, Dr. Cohn to come in and work on the gifted program piece. Since she's already working on that, it goes hand in hand with the identification process. And so that's why I'm asking for that additional day a week for Dr. Cohn. And at the same time, when someone leaves suddenly, we try to find, or even when they leave announced for a long period of time, there's always a transition by the time you post a position. We have to go through the whole interview process. Once we offer a position, there's usually a 60-day hold on the offer. So we're talking about a period of months before we can fill a position. And in special education, we can't just go with that without that covered. So I contacted the intermediate unit, and we were it was very difficult to find anything. I had to call Chester and Montgomery didn't find anybody for a while, but then we finally did identify a person that they can contract service with through the Montgomery County IU, who's a retired special education person, and we've reviewed his credentials, and I know Ms. Pacito has spoken with him on the phone, and we're very happy to have him come out and work 3 days a week to pick up responsibilities that she would identify, particularly around serving as an LEA at some of the meetings, working on our early identification program and process that's already in place, which is really his area of expertise, helping her with the extended summer program that we're getting ready to launch coming up soon. And then some of the other smaller things, one is a grant that it's a $60,000 grant with the Health and Wellness Foundation, and it is due March 30th, but I was able to get an extension to April 10th because we're kind of still trying to figure out where that was left, and want to make sure that that's done properly. So I'll probably have him helping me with that so that I can relieve Mrs. Pacito of those things, and he and I can work with Mrs. Pacito and the principals on putting that grant together. So there's just there's a lot of things that are there, and we just don't want to leave anything drop. If in your packet I put a costing plan for this, and this is essentially what I'm asking you for, is essentially less than what we would have been paying our current administration to do this work. So it's a savings to the district. And, it's a savings of at least $6,600 if we were to use both of those people all the way through July, which chances are we won't have to. We just want to make sure that we have somebody there in case by the time we get the other person hired that it will probably be in the summer sometime, because they'll be held in their current position.
I wonder, sorry to interrupt you, if these savings are appropriately calculated to the extent that, for sure, if we follow this plan, we'll save for this school year, this budget year, $25,967 and change, and the additional cost is being just deducted from that amount. But shouldn't it be looked at in terms of what a full year's worth of cost for the permanent staff would be? I guess what I'm saying is I don't even think this, even if we go through July, it's reducing our savings. It's extending our savings to the extent that it's less expensive than it would have been to have Dr. Roberts.
You're right. You're correct.
You see what I'm saying?
Correct. So it's $25,000 some dollars through the rest of the year, and it's an additional savings of $7,000 for July, should we continue this plan through July.
Okay, just making that clear. So all that, the
right.
longer it lasts, the more we save.
Correct.
Although we obviously need the full-time resource. It doesn't seem like it's a financial decision to me in any case, because we absolutely have to have this coverage. The cost of not complying with special education is far greater risk than anything else. So my question to you then is, do you need a motion for this, or is it on our agenda?
Well, on your action agenda, there's two motions. One is to approve the amendment to Dr. Cohn's contract to allow for that additional day, and the other is to approve a contract with the MCIU for the gentleman, Mr. Coyle, to work for the 3 days a week contracted service. So they're two separate contracts, and they're on the actions.
Why don't we just defer questions on this to when we get to the action items, so we can keep moving? Everybody okay with that? Great.
Okay. And then the last thing we wanted to discuss with you is you had asked us for a budget update. You had asked us to bring forth various scenarios that showed how we would achieve a 1% tax reduction, how we would achieve a 2% tax reduction. And I want to make perfectly clear before we go on this conversation that the administration is not recommending that you go below what you already are at, which is a 2% tax hike, because we believe going lower than that is really going to put us in a position of looking at uncomfortable program and other high highly publicized or coveted things that we might not otherwise want to lose in our district. So I just wanted to make that statement. I know Mr. Nestor, didn't you have Lori put this in their packet? Yeah. So there's a chart in your packet from this evening. We were finishing this up today. So it didn't go home with you on Friday. It's in your packet that was in front of you when you came in. It's probably in your.
I'll start as you're looking for the information. There's actually a couple things I want to hit on. I want to start with a brief update on the status of the state budget. Then I want to talk to you about some additional budgetary needs that we have to take into consideration. And then talk about the desired cuts that we can present as some ideas for you to consider. There are things that can be done, but certainly, as Ms. Feola said, not without a cost in some way, shape, or form. And finally, we want to talk about a plan for future night designated for budget presentations, et cetera. So I wanted to just go through that. So with that being said, the state budget is pretty much where it was 6 months ago. Last week, the House and Senate put forth a new budget proposal to the governor for his approval, with which he had no input in. It apparently gives additional funding to public education. That's good. But in overall terms, the budget is less than it was before and remains unbalanced, which is one of the governor's primary objectives in adopting a budget for 15-16. So that being said, at this point in time, we're waiting to see whether he will sign it, veto it, or do nothing, which would in fact allow the budget to take effect immediately. If he vetoes it, there's been discussion of a veto override. However, that takes 2/3 of both the House and the Senate, which is a very difficult thing to achieve. At this point in time, we're still short that $5.5 million of revenue that we talked about a month or so ago. There is a glimmer of hope, but at this point in time, I'm not counting on anything until I see the check come into my bank account. So with that said, I want to talk about some additional budgetary needs. If you look at the document I provided to you on the bottom section, there's a small section in blue. I mentioned at our last meeting that we thought there was going to be a need to add a special education teacher at the elementary level. We have been monitoring it closely, and we feel very strongly that we're going to have to add an elementary autistic teacher. And I'm providing you with the cost there. We are looking at some options on how we might be able to mitigate the cost of it, but we don't have a determination on whether those are valid directions yet. But regardless of whether we find the cost savings or not, we do feel we need to add this resource to our district. Mr. Parker, you asked a question earlier about why we're 2% over the average with outplaced. I can tell you that over the last 5 years, the district has made a concerted effort to bring kids back into the district who have some more significant issues that historically may have been placed outside the district. But as a result of that, we need to add the resources behind it to support it. So that's what that is. The second item that's listed here is medical and prescription premium increases. We had hoped to have a no increase this year on our medical plan, and we had budgeted for a 10% increase in our prescription plan. Over the last 2 years, we have had reductions in each of the years in the premium rates and what our board contribution levels were. However, we were trying to find the bottom of the bell curve. I think we did. We're pretty close to right on target right now. And the medical trend that's being proposed by our benefits consultants for the medical plan is 7.8%. They are currently projecting an increase of 6.9% for us for the upcoming school year. On the prescription side, the proposal is for a 15.6% increase. As I indicated, we proposed a 10% increase in our original budget. These are not the final numbers. I have a meeting scheduled on April 6th where I will attempt to negotiate with our consortium and the benefits consultant to try and reduce these numbers. One of the things that we have an issue with is, I know we've had presentations from our auditors that our self-employed healthcare fund has a growing reserve, a growing fund balance. This would be a primary opportunity for us to use some of that fund balance to mitigate the premium increase. However, right now, our terms with our consortium do not take our reserves into account. So I'm going to try and get that changed. And if so, we're going to try and reduce this number. So I'm putting it down as where it is now, which is $375,000 of an increase in health care. Hopefully it'll be somewhat less than that, and I'll keep you posted as we go through. So as Mr. Rabinowitz said last time, our budget continues to change all the way through the end of the year. In the past couple years, it's all been in a positive direction. That's not always the case, however. So these are some additional costs that we need to take into consideration. Okay, the next issue, we were charged with coming up with let's back up a little bit. My initial budget presentation reflected a 2% tax increase. And there are certainly the same number of large question marks out there as to whether or not we're going to be funded adequately as there was then. We had also been charged with coming up with what it would take to get to a 1% tax increase and what it would take to get to a 0% tax increase. I've twisted the terminology a little bit because our new reality is not that. So what I attempted to do is tell you what type of cuts we would need to make to reduce our tax increase by 1% and what additional types of issues we might have to consider to get to a 2% reduction. That may or may not be a net 0% tax increase. And then other non-mandated items that are out there for consideration.
Just want to make sure I'm reading this right. So instead of saying, 1% tax increase, 2% tax increase on this chart, you're saying reduce by 1%, reduce by 2%. If we're starting at 2% and reduce by 2%, not factoring in the additional cost, then you feel you're achieving your zero.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. But you will notice if you look at the end of at the bottom of to achieve a 2% tax reduction, there is an additional amount needed there. So I wasn't able to get there without considering some more severe type of reductions that we would need board input in. So to get to a 1% tax reduction, we currently have notification of a potential 3 retirements. So if those 3 individuals do retire and they are replaced, we would save approximately $119,000. Go ahead.
Those three in additional to the ones that we already know about?
No, we have three that we think are, two that we know about and one that we anticipate. In addition, we currently have a groundskeeper position that has been unfilled for the better part of a year. It was in the budget as being replaced. We think we can do that without, go without replacing that position possibly. It could have an impact on the condition of our grounds. I do want to point out a error here in the second column. That number should be $60,500, not 68. I apologize for that. I made that correction and didn't do it in both columns. Beyond that, we had, when we projected the Western Center budget, we had anticipated a larger increase in their budget than what they actually proposed. So there's a $60,000 reduction there that we can make in that budget. So those three are fairly non-confrontational issues. Once we get beyond that, they get incrementally more painful. So we haven't had an increase in our building allocation for several years. We give our buildings an allocation based on the number of students they have. And that has been, we attempted to increase it a few years ago, and then we cut it back, and then so it's been flat for a number of years on a per pupil basis. If we were to reduce those building allocations by 5%, that would yield a savings of approximately $33,000. And we think district-wide, in our district-wide departments, which would be facilities, curriculum, district office, and technology, if necessary, we could come up with cuts there to yield the numbers presented. But under that scenario, some things that we covet may be lost. It may be in the technology department, it may be some computers, it could be some software, it could be some things like that. In the facilities department, it might be things, equipment not getting replaced in a timely fashion, or deferred maintenance, or things like that, which could eventually cause some challenges. And it would go around, but we would suggest that you give the administrators in charge of those departments the ability to identify the items that they feel would be less impactful in cutting. So, so that, if you notice, this is like a green, yellow, red type scenario. The yellows get a little bit more challenging, and the reds are, some of them are borderline not possible.
Unacceptable.
Right, well, yes. They may not be borderline.
Well played, Mr.
So the first two items under the yellow section are potential reductions in staffing. In a middle school music position possibly being reduced to a half-time position, and the elimination of a .5 business teacher. At the Western Center last year and again this year, we will be receiving money back because they had a surplus beyond their anticipated level. So we had committed the monies that we received last year to defray any future increases. If we were to completely eliminate the increase requested in this year's Western Center budget, we could reduce that line item by an additional $40,000. At the high school, we have a custom marching band drill valued at $10,000, and we could consider deferring a bus or purchasing it through capital reserve. Little hesitant on pushing things to capital reserve at this point in time. Prior to our last meeting, we had a facilities committee meeting where we outlined a 10-year plan that was in the neighborhood of $15 million, where we only have $6 million available to pay for it. So I hesitate to push a lot of things there, or we may not be able to do some of the needed repairs. I don't know if we want to go into each of the items under the laundry list of non-mandated items. I kind of put this together because if we do not get the state funding this year, we're really not talking about 1% or 2%. We're talking about survival, and these might be some of the things that we need to do to survive.
Well, I was thinking that that's probably why you added some of those in, and obviously if we have to make up $5 million, then we're talking about an emergency situation.
Correct.
Still, it's great that you listed those out for us. I don't think we need to go through them one by one. We can read, and I think that it's only in an emergency situation that the great majority of those would be factored in. I'm going to ask you, though, to once again let us know the total and complete cost for creation, production, and mailing of the Achiever. This may come as a surprise to you, but I like it even less than I have in the past. So I think that's around $30K, if I remember correctly, when you add it all up. And I'd like to see that in as a possibility for us to consider. Please.
I will quantify what it's costing us this year. I think our costs are down a bit because we haven't done for issues, but I'll quantify that for our next meeting. And that could be one of the district-wide reductions if that's where we want to go.
I noticed in today's Achiever that there was ads in there. So even with those ads, it's still costing us, we don't know, whatever the amount is.
The majority of the ads are district-wide sponsors that we get through the Market Street Sports Program. So we get that money outside of the Achiever per se, but as part of our agreement with them, we publish an ad for them in the Achiever. So, you know, we have some money. It's in a different bucket, but not directly offsetting the Achiever.
So if we eliminated, just to be clear then, if we eliminated the Achiever, would we lose Market Street funding, or could we make it up somewhere else?
I don't necessarily think we would. I think we'd have to change our contract language with the sponsors.
We could, for example, throw those ads in the program guides for, like, the plays, for example, or, you know, find some other way to accommodate those needs, couldn't we?
The ads, I believe they have ads in all the sporting programs and things like that. I'm not sure if they get it in the play programs or not, but we typically have an opportunity for a 10-second advertisement at the events, thanking them for their sponsorship. But I'm sure we could come up with something. It might reduce the fee a little bit. You don't know how they are going to view the accessibility to the community.
I just have a quick question concerning, you say defer the purchase of one bus. Are we planning on buying buses again this year?
We have a plan to purchase, it's kind of like a rotating inventory of buses. We look at buying approximately 3 buses a year. It might be 2 buses and a couple vans. It might be 3 vans and 2 buses, or 1 bus or something like that. But the story I heard was a long, long time ago, all of our buses got to be end of life at the same time, and we had to invest a significant amount of money to redo the whole fleet. So we have about 40 vehicles. We replace about 3 a year.
I'm just curious, is that on the suggestion of the bus company? Like, who does the maintenance and stuff? I mean, the buses are diesel engines. Diesel engines have quite a long lifetime, and I do understand that school buses, an engine on a school bus is more taxed because of the stop and go. It's not like a long haul 18-wheeler that's driving from Maine to California. I'm just curious, because I know that they can last a while, but at the same time, I guess the interior, I'm sure it takes a beating.
The CMD Services is our subcontractor. They maintain the vehicles, they service the vehicles, and they drive the vehicles. We buy the vehicles. We replace them at an approximately 13, 14-year life expectancy. If you look at most of the districts that subcontract their buses, they have a mandatory replacement in 4 years on the outside, just to make sure that they're maintained. I think we have a pretty good relationship with our contractor to get 13 years out of them.
Can you explain a little more what that marching band custom drill and arrangement is? I don't get that. When you go to a football game on a Friday night, or you go to one of the cavalcades or whatnot, they have the music and the movement that they do. And that is, we've historically paid for a subcontractor to develop that specifically for Pottsgrove's band. Number of trumpets, number of tubas, number of piccolos, whatever. And they help design that whole program so that it works well together.
Mr. Nestor, isn't it your understanding, though, that other schools either have their booster, their music league would fund that, or the teacher would write it themselves? I mean, I know that you had a reason for bringing that to our attention.
Right. I mean, it could be done a number of ways. I'm sure the ones that are, the bands that are very competitive probably have a professional do this. But it doesn't mean we can't have a marching band without a program without it. It's just, it may not be of the quality that it is.
That could also be funded out of Market Street too, right? It's related to athletics to a certain extent, right?
It could be funded out of Market Street. Market Street's in general fund, just like everything else. So it still needs to be in the budget if they're going to fund it.
Let's move on.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Potential savings, I know it's in the red, but potential, is that okay? I have a question. Thank you, sir. Potential savings on WCTS refinancing. Why is that in the red?
It's in the red because, first off, it's contingent upon a refinancing taking place at the Western Center. We think it's going to happen. We think it's going to generate approximately this amount of savings for Pottsgrove. But it's only going to generate those savings this year. And in the following year, the debt service returns to its prior level. So if we cut it this year, you're going to have a $400,000 hole starting next year.
Mr. Rabinowitz, I think we're going to need some direction, and we weren't sure. You had asked at the last meeting the board members for each department to kind of present their budget, that you wanted us to go through that process. We were wondering if perhaps at the next workshop meeting, which is 1 month from now, it'll be at the high school, but it would be here, if you would like to just devote the whole evening to having, presentation after presentation just related to finance and budget, or if you wanted us to to spread these things out over the whole spring. I mean, sometimes you run out of time, and we weren't sure what the board wanted to do, so I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? For those of you new members, there's no getting around the joy of the budget presentations, but it's important that we know what they're doing, and I personally think it's important that we do them. So if anybody disagrees and feels we can dispense with them, then I'd like to hear from you, and/or I think what Mrs. Feola is asking us is just dedicate a night to it, or space it out over time, right?
Yeah, and the next time we meet, this is technically your committee meeting, your workshop, your work. So we would say we won't put motions, unless it's an emergency, we won't put motions on the agenda at all, and we would just run it like a workshop, finance committee, board of the whole, and each department chair would probably sit at the table with us and just present their budget.
I think I like that, and we did it last year. It was a long night, but it's important. So, anybody disagree? I don't think we need a motion on this, right? We're just looking for.
No, I just needed your direction.
All right, so let's do it that way. So we're going to combine.
Phew. Okay, so moving on to action, I recommend that you approve the professional staff items as submitted.
I'd like to combine all personnel. I don't think we need a motion to combine, do we?
We just need a motion to pass the items.
Yeah. Unless somebody wants to pull anything out. Are we okay with combining personnel, gentlemen and lady? Okay, personnel is combined. I need a motion for all personnel.
I'll second it.
Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you approve, we need to nominate someone for the MCIU Board of Director to the MCIU.
I nominate Diane Cherico. Didn't we already do this?
She filled in the remainder of the term, I think.
Oh.
New term.
All right. I nominate Diane Cherico. Do I have a second?
Who's
Any
the second?
questions?
Was Ashley the second? I didn't hear, I couldn't tell who.
Pick one.
Okay. Sorry.
No questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you authorize the administration to amend the independent contractor agreement as presented.
Second. This pertains to the discussion we had in reference to pupil services. Are there any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you authorize the administration to approve the agreement with the MCIU as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Again, this pertains to the pupil services discussion. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you authorize the administration to enter into an agreement with Wordsworth Academy as presented.
So moved. Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you authorize the administration to enter into an agreement with the Vanguard School as presented.
Second. Motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Question, just asked based on history, so I'm trusting this year all ESY is going to be reviewed as these two, I believe, cases were, and improved based on data and not just
Yeah, part of the
subjective.
IEP process.
Per the IEP, right?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you approve the submission of Plan Con Part K as presented.
Motion and a second. I have a question. Can somebody explain that one, please,
Be happy to.
briefly?
The Plan Con process is a multi-step process that you go through when you do a school construction project. After the project's completed, you get a partial refund from the state on the construction costs and debt service you're paying for the project. Since we recently refinanced some debt to achieve lower interest rates, we have to share our savings with the state. In order to do that, we have to notify them of what the revised debt service payments are. So that's what Plan Con Part K reports to the state.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I recommend that you approve the conference attendance as presented.
So moved. A motion and a second. I want to thank you for providing us the additional information on these. Do you need us to separate them, Mr. Parker? Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I had one question. I understand that and I appreciate all the new information. I'm curious as to why we didn't add that into the public's agenda, so the public could see the addition, or at least some of the additional information.
When we get board docs, that would be easy for me to
Okay,
do,
so
but
just wait for board docs. You got it.
that's what we had said we were going to do.
So sending a maintenance tech for asbestos training, so our techs work with asbestos? I'm looking at John because I know. So this.
It's actually a requirement that we have at least, I'm sorry, my fault. I believe, I know where I worked, at least one person on staff in a maintenance crew has to have that requirement. That's for, I'm not here.
Jeff's shaking his head yes in
Yeah.
agreement with you, John.
I didn't see, sorry, Jeff. My right is little.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
That's the end of my report. No, committee reports. Policy committee. Sorry.
We have two committee reports. Well, we have the minutes of the Operations and Facilities Committee meeting, so we just need a motion to approve the minutes, and I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Then all in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0 carries. Matt, you want to talk about policy?
Okay, so the policy committee met tonight at 6:30, and we just quickly reviewed the policies that have been posted for public comment and are now up for up for board review or approval, which is the 105 for organization, the number 249 for bullying and cyberbullying. We didn't do any further review on those two policies tonight. Policies that we reviewed under old business, the graduation requirements. There was one final revision to the requirement for graduation, and that was, for anybody who remembers, last month we talked about raising the requirement for graduation to 23.49 credits, which is actually what we have been doing for some time now, but the policy needed to be updated to reflect that. The one thing that we added as a revision, based on the recommendation from the administration, was that requirement didn't officially take effect until the class of 2019. Reason being is, since technically it is a new policy requirement, we didn't want to force some of the students who were closer to graduation to suddenly need to crunch credits to try and fit that additional half a credit that wasn't previously required. So that revision was made, and that will be posted for public review and comment. the policy for a student board representation. Again, for the last few months, we've been talking about adding that second student board representative. That board representative, the intent would be to have a junior start a year early, be a junior board rep so that they could get their feet wet, see how it works, and come into their senior year prepared to be an effective board representative and participate in meetings. So we need to revise the policy to reflect that intention and that plan. We also want to add possibly some wording that would encourage student rep participation. So right now, the student rep comes and he does a good job at reporting out of the student goings on in the district and concerns, but we also want to encourage the rep that they are welcome to participate in the rest of the meeting as it unfolds. Third, the one this is just for discussion, and we haven't even begun to create policy on it yet, but the volunteering guidelines for background checks and what's going to require a background check, and there's some pretty, I won't say pretty clear law on it, because there is a law. It leaves itself somewhat open for interpretation, but we want to make sure that we're in compliance. What the committee feels is important, and we do feel like we are in compliance now, but maybe a little bit of over-compliance in some areas. We want to develop a policy that's a district-wide standard, that's well understood by the staff, that we clearly communicate to the community, the parents, and anybody else who's interested in volunteering. And then we want to be able to consistently, uniformly enforce that throughout all the schools in the district, and make sure that it's also consistently implemented. So basically, to boil that down, we want to have a comprehensive policy that keeps us in compliance, that is well understood and enforced and implemented at every school the same way, so that we don't have a lot of questioning about where the background checks are required, where they're not required. We feel like, and I know we talked about this before, that we might be discouraging participation, discouraging volunteerism, because, you know, there's 3 background checks. They're very easy to do from the people up here who have completed them, but it's 3 checks. It might be a little bit intimidating. We want to make the process clear and make sure that we're consistent across the board with how we implement and enforce it. So that was just starting talks. We're going to start trying to put together something so that we're, I think, ready to go for the beginning of next school year at the very least. That is it for policy committee.
Well, there was one more thing. We talked about the policy 105 organization, which is in day 29 of its 30-day review. I indicated that I intend to motion to approve that for this meeting rather than waiting until 4/12. All of you have seen copies of that policy, and one of the things that policy establishes is a personnel committee. And in light of the current vacancy in the administration, I would like to make a motion to approve policy 105 now rather than waiting until April 12th to pass that 30-day threshold. And just to be clear before there's a response, the policy that calls for the 30-day threshold does allow us to expedite under certain circumstances, and I think this is one of those circumstances where it's warranted. So I have a motion. Can I have a second to my motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. New business. Who wants to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Real quick, myself, my girlfriend, Mr. Leach and his wife, we went to the high school's performance at the West End Firehouse, the murder mystery, and it was fantastic. I had a great time. The kids were awesome, the people at the fire hall, all the volunteers, Mr. Robles and his folks. Everything was fantastic. I think there was 100, Dr. Ziegler still here? There was 100 and something, 114 people in attendance. You had to guess the suspect in the murders of the actors in this club. And out of the 114 guests that were there, 14 of us got it right. And just so you know, I won this wonderful little Tinkerbell watch that I wear.
Yes, you did.
Because I was involved, and we had a wonderful time, so it was fantastic.
Congratulations for guessing right, Mr. Rossi. You reminded me, I also went to the middle school production of The Little Mermaid. And I know I wasn't the only one who went. I know I saw Mrs. Cherico there the night I went, which was Saturday night. And I was just really impressed with the quality of the production. I was there with my 11-year-old son, and I kept talking to him about all the little intricacies of putting together a play, which is so much different from, so many other productions in the world, movies, et cetera. And it was both technically and satisfying for that reason, and the kids did such a great job with their acting and singing and dancing. It was really a great show. So my hats off to the middle school students and their teachers, Mrs. Bean, and I'm going to forget the other person's name.
Mr. Yanchek.
Mr. Yanchik, for doing such a great job. So that's my only new business tonight.
Yeah, and
Anybody else?
I also want to just add, too, that I thought that the middle school did an awesome job, and I think Mrs. Bean is great in choosing productions every year that allow a lot of extras, so that you have your main characters, but then you have a lot of kids that can dance or joining the chorus, and those that aren't quite ready to take on a leading role can still have the stage presence and participate. So it was great. It was really, really good.
I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Jones and her staff, if we could pass that along. Last Thursday, I had the opportunity to be volunteering in this school. I had my ID tag on and was at parent pickup, and even with that ID on, staff did not, the sticker ID, not my board ID, staff didn't recognize me, and they came up and they questioned why I was there. And they came up and questioned again. So I was very impressed. I'm always looking to see that we're keeping safety first, so I appreciated that and meant to point that out to Mrs. Jones, so if we can do that.
So they have your seal of approval, Mr. Parker.
I actually want to bring up two different things. One really short, one I'd like to discuss a little bit, though. There's a policy in effect where we cannot use school buildings, we cannot rent out the use of a school building on a Sunday. School buildings can be used for student activities, or school activities, but not for outside school activities. There's an instance where Premier Dance, right at the end of the long driveway here, over by the cafe up here. They have a production every year. They do 4 concerts at the end of the year, but they rent out an entire week where several hundred students come and there's parents the entire time. Families go and they basically practice for live audition or live performance, practice for the rehearsals for 4 days, and then they go into several productions to allow all the families to go, because many of the students are in 2 or 3 different productions. So they have to spread it out over Friday night, Saturday afternoon, a Saturday night, and a Sunday performances. but they've put forth the request, and it can be honored for the Monday through Saturday use, but not the Sunday use as it stands right now because of something that went into effect quite some time ago. So that's one of the things we're trying to find out, if there's any way, if anyone is interested, that we could post about to actually have use to rent school buildings on a Sunday, assuming that there was staff that would be willing to come in to do the custodial work or supervise as necessary.
I think that was the big question that I had, was do we need to then have staff, and who pays for the staff's overtime, and I just don't understand how that would work, so I don't.
My suspicion is, I think it's a little word suspicion, I don't remember the question here specifically, but many boards a long time ago decided, because of the burden on Sundays and the custodial staff, and then be advised, and it's certainly your decision, that once you open the buildings on Sundays, you open it to all. And so be prepared, and there's nothing wrong with this for church services and other items. So it's not a one-off kind of deal. Now, again, certain districts do open on Sunday. You'd have to have some discussion probably. I would suggest you not rush into it. You have some discussion with Dave and Jeff to see what the staffing is, and the custodial services, and whether there's going to be a different cost structure, because I don't know if Sundays are double time or not in your contract. So, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but it's not simply a matter of allowing it for one, because once you open the forum, you have to open it to all, which is fine, but you have to make that as a conscious decision.
I mean, I think that's one of the things is that would maybe I would look at it also, that you would have to have staff that would be willing to be there. And as far as I know, it would most likely just be custodial work to, prepare and clean up. I don't know if they would be paying also for staff for lighting. I don't know if they would bring their own. That I don't know, but that would be something I would expect that they would have to pay for anything that they use, just like anyone else. I mean, right now the buildings are open on Sundays, but for school activities.
Right.
So.
And that's a separate legal distinction that you can make. And again, it's your choice to make. What you will find, and be prepared for it, is you will probably have certain religious groups that will make this their home then. Well, they'll have church services every Sunday in a particular building. And that's fine, but, some boards through the years have been reluctant to open it up to religious purposes, which you can or cannot do. But once you open it, be advised it's open to all.
So that's the one thing, I know you said it now several times, so I'm sure you mean it, but I'm going to ask it a different way. You're saying we absolutely cannot just make a one-time exception for one group and then revert back to our policy?
I've always advised this board against it because, again, it's an open forum issue, which is legalese for whether it's a student newspaper. Once you open the forum, you open it to all. And certainly to suggest that you can do it one-off and then change it next week, the answer is no, you should not.
Jim, I don't know how the fees are structured. I can only go by my experience. You have a fee to use the facility. Now, and that fee could be the fee also would include everything from electric to usage of this and usage of that. And on Sundays, I know where I work, the fee is a little jacked up because you're paying your staff double time. Your custodians that have to come in, they're getting paid double time to come in on a Sunday. They're not going to volunteer, if they're required to come in. So that's a lot of factors that go in. I know with where I am at on a Sunday function, we don't rent out on Sundays.
I can't tell you anymore. I'm kind of sorry.
I understand.
I've lost track over the years as to where the balance is. I mean, I can tell you 15, 20 years ago, the balance was certainly about closing the facilities on Sundays because of all the issues we talked about.
Well, I do know that they have been paying for Sunday use at Boyertown High School for 15, 20 years, I think it's been. So I imagine that they would expect this, and be quite honest, it's one of those things that would be, if we decide to do it and say it's going to be this rate, that's what it's going to be. It is after school that's out. It'd be the week of the 20th through the 26th, so there would be no school activities at that point, so.
Mark, are you saying that if we rent out to one, we have to rent out to all?
Yes, I'm sorry. I wasn't clear about
Okay.
that. The answer is yes. Too much double talk from me.
I'll say, maybe I'm in the minority, but if we're looking at possibly charging a fee, where it could be as in some revenue generating, and we don't have to go back to some taxpayers, I don't see that much of an issue with it. Maybe I'm the only one. I'm not really having a bother with if we open to one, we open to all, as long as we're generating what's necessary and the people are willing to pay the fee.
Can I just give you a background on what our policy says? Okay. Essentially, if you're a community group serving students of Pottsgrove, we do not charge a fee to rent the facility unless you're making a profit.
And they are. And they would be.
This group would be. So then we would charge a rental fee, and we would charge them the cost of any services that they require. In this case, it would be custodial, and they have requested lighting and sound. However, if it was somebody's music group that wanted to have a concert and they weren't charging for it, we would make nothing. We would cover the cost of the overtime, but we would not charge a rental fee. Do you follow what I'm saying? Our only fees that are generated is if we're renting the facility and they're making a profit.
So in Mark's scenario, where we become the home of a church organization,
do they make profits on Sundays? I don't know.
I'm not gonna touch that one, Mr. Nestor. So we couldn't charge them a fee. Just making it clear, because they're a nonprofit. So if we changed our policy, we could charge them a fee.
I think probably, that's why I have suggested you send this to policy committee, and I whispered that to Rick, because I think you want to be aware of all the ramifications. I believe my off-the-cuff opinion would be that because of the additional cost on a Sunday, you could carve out an exception in your policy for a higher cost structure on Sundays.
Jim, you're bringing this up because they need an answer.
Correct.
And they need it by.
I think today or yesterday. They put it in last week, and the person, I guess, who was coming with the pricing schedule for them was not out, or is not in until this Monday or today, I think it was.
Today was our first day.
They were just trying to avoid having to go to Pope John Paul, which would be the next closest place that would open to them, because they tried all the other schools and they were all closed or already booked on Sundays.
What happened with their 15-year stint at Boyertown?
Boyertown did renovations last year, and I guess when they opened up, they had already booked something in advance, and they were expecting for the week after, so they got a conflict.
The board has made one-off decisions before, and I've winced.
Unfortunately, I mean, I guess I have very mixed feelings. First of all, I feel a little concerned about requiring. Well, we're not requiring, but this is all contingent on staff being willing to do this, which we don't know if they are, and then assuming that they are, the concerns that Mark's raised obvious, I guess, I know Mark's not going to like if we do a one-off to accommodate our neighbor up the road that has a need, but I think that's our choice right now, is to either accommodate them or to not accommodate them, and then figure out the policy afterwards. So.
Now you know I have all these wrinkles. I've been wincing all these years.
So I mean, this is the decision of the board. Jim, if you want to make a motion, then you do so, but I don't know if it's going to pass.
No, I don't know if it's going to pass either, but at least get some idea. I would like to make a motion that we open on a Sunday. I don't know if I should be specific for which one, for a premiere dance for their performance on the 26th of June.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this one?
Just to be clear, our attorney advised against it, that it does open the doors for some potential legality issues.
I personally think, I thought we had more time. If they need to, obviously they need to plan for a venue. I think we should revisit the policy, most definitely, but to make an on-the-spot decision against Mark's better judgment, I don't feel comfortable there. That's just me.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Sorry, Jim.
No, I understand.
Any other new business?
Actually, I do have one. I don't know, this is more of a question to throw out there if this is possible. We're always talking about trying to get better communication with the community. And what I wanted to know was, is it possible right now through, my mind goes, a Power School, there is in their building the messenger that allows us to communicate to the families of the students. Is there any way that we can set something up to do an opt-in list to send out a message to all of them saying, look, the school board would like to have an email address where we could, send you out the minutes, send you out questions we might have, surveys we might have, and ask the community parents, community members to opt in as a list for that.
Michael, could you just go over what we do already?
We do already have that. We use two mail list services. One is for our families, that's School Messenger. We also have some outside organizations that we enter into that system who are associated with us because they provide, before school, after school childcare, and they need to be, or our bus drivers, CMD, because they need to be informed of inclement weather related closures and so forth. We also have several lists under a service called biglists.com. The board has a mail list, and we send out information about upcoming meetings, links to the meeting agenda and minutes. We also send the board highlights out through that service as well, usually the day following the board meeting. So that is a subscribed opt-in, opt-out, self-managed list. We also provide those lists for PTO groups that are, who are interested, and we do we have a community list, weather-related emergencies, for community members. Those are the lists that are included under that service.
Is there a way to maybe make a little bit more use of that list with whenever we're going to be having a board meeting, to send out the agenda and maybe spend a little bit, for those people that want to bring something up, spend a little time to present more of the information, I guess, which would be like on the board docs, to the people, so that the community members can see it ahead of time and then read through it and say, oh, you know what, I really do want to be there for this, or
but we do that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just thinking, I've never really received that much through my email, I know.
Well, did you subscribe to the list?
I don't remember ever being invited to the list.
Okay, there's actually there's a link on the website to subscribe to community lists, and it's also featured on the communication page of the district website. But I can make that more prominent
So that's
for you.
it's a passive, I think, as opposed to, what I'm saying is actually send out an email to all the parents saying, look, we would like to opt you in on this list. Are you interested? As opposed to waiting for them to come and find out that there's a list somewhere that if they find it, they can
So
click on it.
we would, well, yeah, so we would upload their email address, is that what you're asking?
You have a list right now for all the parents.
Right.
And I realize you don't have it for other community members because, I mean, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have it, you don't have it. But for the parents of the children that go to the school, to send them an email saying would opt in on the other list. If you would like to, opt in and then be able to, they can reply back. So use the one list to opt in and generate more leads onto the other list so that we can actually get more information out to family members.
Michael, did they get it already through School Messenger?
Well, they get the board highlights through School Messenger, yes.
Okay.
I send the board highlights out to our entire district faculty. I send it out to all the parents in the community.
But
and that
you're
usually-
saying you didn't see it, Mr. Lappick? Because that's what we're wondering why.
even-
That's what he's saying, you didn't get it.
Yeah, and I send it out to that board list that I discussed. Now, if what we can do, and we do it periodically, and we haven't done it recently, but we do it periodically, is we send it we message out to our parents about the different ways the school district communicates, and we can certainly feature that. We can also make it more prominent on our website. So I mean, there are things that we can do to better publicize that list.
Well, I'm thinking also, like I said, the agenda, to be able to get that out to, as opposed to just posting on the website, just sending out to the families ahead of time.
We do that, though.
You do?
Yeah, we send a link to the agenda out through that board mail list. Oh, well, yeah, well, or check to see if you subscribed, or I can subscribe.
I used to get it, but I stopped, so I'll look at my own subscriptions. I mean, I didn't change my subscriptions, but
There were
I
about
can
300.
confirm that.
Yeah, okay, so fine.
The last I checked, there were about, I'm guessing, about 300 that were on that were subscribed to that list.
So just to be clear for Mr. Lappick, when the parent signs up on Power School, they decide what preferences they wish, how they wish to be communicated, and what types of, is it going to be emergency only, or is it going to be other forms? Is that correct?
Within School Messenger, yes. But the big list is a community-based list.
subscribe.
Yeah, so it's self-subscribed, self-managed.
But for you, that you're saying you don't get it, is because when you chose your preferences, you likely didn't say you wanted it. Is that correct? I just want to make sure we're clear.
That's not, when we ask for preferences, we're asking parents to tell us what email they want school-specific information going to, under what circumstances, when do you want us to ring your phone, do you want text messages when we send text messages? That's one list, and that's for the parents and guardians in the community. Then we have these community-based lists. So if we know there's some really good community programs going on, or we want to send out information about an upcoming play or event, but we want to invite the whole community, in addition to posting that on our website, we push that out through our community lists. The board list is considered a community list. And so and we send that information out so that community members who are interested in board activity and board action can know when the meetings are and can know what the agendas are and get the board highlights.
But you have to subscribe to
You
that.
have to
So we'll
subscribe.
send out another communication to
Right.
everyone
Yes.
saying that they can subscribe.
They can subscribe, and there are directions, and we can send those directions as well. I don't know that I want to I don't want to automatically opt parents in.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Given the choice to opt into, would you like to know about the agendas of board meetings before they happen, or the different committee
Right.
meetings before they happen, or key communicator, things like that, so that, 'cause I've been feeling that more families probably would be interested in
We
learning.
can certainly do that.
It's been a long time since there's been a communication about it, so I think that that would be great.
Yeah.
That hopefully is good for you. Is there any other new business?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring one thing. I'm sorry. Just one. I know it was brought up earlier about the achiever. And oddly enough, Bill also brought up something about proofreading. And this combines both. Isn't that exciting? This achiever came out with an entire section wrong. I don't know who proofread it. I don't know why it was not proofread. But it actually says 3 class of 2015 athletes now playing at college level. They're not. They're 2016 graduates. They aren't playing at college level yet. They've been signed to play. So this information is completely wrong. And I'm sorry, it makes me very upset to know that we spent all this money. This went to every single resident in Pottsgrove. And it's wrong, very wrong. So that's it. I'm just really disappointed to see that.
Well, since I intend to kill the achiever and kill it dead, I feel your pain, Mrs. Custer, but I think the budget's going to help me win this one. So that'll solve the problem, at least. But the issue of our communications being tightened up and more grammatically correct with correct information is obviously an important one. So I don't mean to make light of it. So, is there any other new business? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.